Hello and welcome to Frame, part of the We Made This podcast network. We are normally the podcast that take two films that aren't really related and slam them together. However, this is a special episode. We are going to be talking about the 2021 Oscars. So normally we talk about just basically films off a random theme, but this episode is that special. So with the Oscars happening roughly around 20 hours ago, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it'd just be good to run through some of the winners and losers on the night. But Sean, why don't you sum up roughly your attitude to the Oscars ahead of going into this?
That's the red rag to the bull question, that isn't it? And it's the classic thing. I mean, the Oscars are pretty useless at the best of times. Let me just say that outright. Every now and then they'll get it right, as in 2020 when they gave Best Picture to Parasite. I thought that year, okay, blimey, they actually seem to have got it right for a change.
I mean, Moonlight
Parasite,
as well.
yeah. I
Was
mean,
right.
these are these are exceptions. I mean, the
Exceptions
thing
to
is.
prove the rule.
Yeah, exactly. In a year in which the motion picture industry has undergone its first ever global shutdown as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the inadequacy and the irrelevancy of the Oscars has just been even more exposed, because there is no point having Oscars if you don't have a cinema infrastructure to show those movies in the first place. You can throw as many sort of gowns, red carpets, nonsensical speeches out as possible. I think that you need the industry to support the films in the first place, and I think we've got much bigger fish to fry at the moment in terms of just getting cinemas back open and getting audiences confident enough to go back. And I think we've been in a very, very weird position this year where people could be forgiven for thinking there were any kind of Oscar baiting movies out at all, because everything has been so discombobulated and so completely thrown for a loop. I mean, I've struggled to keep up at times. I mean, I've seen lots of films that were up for contention at the Oscars this year, but at various points, and then I've kind of lost the thread of, like, hang on, were they nominated? Did they win? Did they fall out of the race? And it's been weird. And all that, bearing all that in mind, I don't value the Oscars at the best of times. So you can imagine what my attitude towards it this year has been. What about yours?
Yeah, so I'm in a similar boat to you in that I think I use it as almost a checklist to make sure that I've seen them, regardless whether they win or not. I like to try and watch all the nominees because I feel that it's at least worthwhile doing, even if there's films that you. So, like when Green Book won, for example, I saw Green Book ahead of the Oscars. I think it was an unlimited screening for the cinema.
I went with you to that one, didn't I? Did I go with you to that one? The secret screening?
Quite
Yeah.
possibly. Either that or you told me what it was, which you definitely didn't do.
No, it's not like me.
And yeah, so I try and watch them, even sort of especially the international pictures, because they highlight films that I probably ordinarily wouldn't watch. But digging into this year's, we had the sort of the forerunners going in of Nomadland. We had Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. There was The Father. There was Minari. There was Promising Young Woman. So just to run through a couple of the winners that we had, because I think that it's worth sort of at least highlighting those. Best Original Screenplay went to Promising Young Woman. Have you seen that?
I haven't yet. That's Emerald Fennell got that. It's had really, really good notices, obviously, for its very acerbic, sharp screenplay and brilliant performance from Carey Mulligan. So I need to catch up with that one.
Yeah, same. I haven't seen it either. So I really hope that this isn't going to turn into. Have you seen it? Nope, and that's that.
Be a pretty short Oscar special.
Well, why don't we start off then with the best picture? Have you seen Nomadland?
Yes. So
I was really worried there because I haven't, because it's not out yet. So I'm just a layperson, therefore have not seen it. But why don't you sort of sum up briefly what you thought about it, and the fact that it ended up winning Best Picture, Best Director, and it won Best Supporting Actress for Frances McDormand as well.
Yes. Well, bearing in mind what I've just said about the general redundancy of the Oscars, I'm really happy that this won because I think it's a terrific film. I saw it last year again. I saw it way back as part of the BFI Film Festival last year, which streamed online for the first time in its history. It was a bit more of a democratized process, I want to say, with people could access the big movies just at home through their computer, which is what I did. That's how I got to see Nomadland. I really like it. I think it's a really gripping film. I think Chloe Zhao has become the first woman of color to win the Best Director Oscar. I believe, is that right? So that's historic.
I mean, she's only the second woman to win Best Director.
Yeah, which just
is
again
madness.
exposes the idiocy of the Oscars track record, frankly. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting. She's a fascinating director. She crisscrosses fictional narratives with documentary. It was a near documentary footage. She did this with The Rider in 2018, and she does it now with the fictional narrative of Frances McDormand's Fern. She's a widower. She packs her husband's belongings in storage, and she takes off and lives a nomadic existence in America's interior. And she comes into contact with other nomads who aren't actors; they are real nomadic communities. So the blending of the fiction and the documentary is done really imperceptibly and really brilliantly. I think it's really fascinating, and I'm really delighted that it won. I mean, I'm a sucker for frontier Western American stories. I think there's a very haunting echo in the film about the fact that these nomadic communities in 21st century America have fallen off the map, but there's a kind of an echo of the prairie wagon movement from people in America's distant past. You have that real sense of history resonating through it. I think it's a superb film. Weirdly, when I watched it, because I went traveling all around America back in 2008, and I got to a certain point in this, I was like, hang on a minute, I know that there's a certain little town where Frances McDormand's character Fern starts. She works as a dishwasher. I'm like, I've been there. I know exactly where that is. It's a little place called Wall Drug, right in the middle of the Badlands in South Dakota. South Dakota. I always get those mixed up. And I'm like, of all the places that I went to in America, like the most nondescript place. I mean, this is the whole point of the film. It's meant to take place in these very kind of ordinary, commonplace settings. I was like, I know that restaurant. I know that town, and I alighted there, and a whole chunk of Nomadland revolves around Frances McDormand being in and around this restaurant, which is quite weird. But yeah, it's a great film. Yeah, I'd recommend anyone seeing it. It's very steadily paced. I mean, that's some people could see that as a euphemism for being insufferably boring. I don't mean it like that. It's very gentle, and it's not a film of melodrama, which is why I like it a lot. Yeah,
so it's not Three Billboards.
Well, no, I mean, Frances McDormand again does the thing that Frances McDormand does, which she's really, really good at playing quite flinty, chippy characters. And clearly in Fargo, she was very warm. She was very warm and very affectionate. But she's also got this other side, so where she can play quite alienated, ostracized people very, very well. And there are undertones of her Three Billboards performance, which obviously got an Oscar in her performance in Nomadland, but it's much more on a low ebb. She, in Three Billboards, she confronts society. In this, she attempts to back away from it and just disappear into the American heartlands. It's an interesting comparison. But yeah, she's fantastic as ever. She's brilliant in it.
I genuinely can't wait to watch it. It's one of the ones that I'm really, really waiting for, ahead of even winning these Oscars. Just knowing that Chloe Zhao had directed Frances McDormand in a film, I absolutely wanted to watch it. I guess the big story coming out of the Oscars is to do with the Best Actor winner. Because in the ceremony, for some sort of unknown reason, it was elected to go on last. And that sort of makes you think it's going to go one way. It makes you think it's going to be the tribute to Chadwick Boseman. And then it ended up going to Anthony Hopkins for The Father. And once again, The Father is not out here yet. It's due for theatrical release. And I have not seen it. However, I believe you have.
Yes. Sorry, I thought I'd throw in another beat there just to try.
Yeah, you can't keep doing that to me. My blood pressure's going up and up.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I have seen it. It's terrific, and it's a shame thanks to classic Oscars just mangling any notion of common sense and mangling any sense of a proper tribute to a much loved actor. They have to turn what should be a celebration of Chadwick Boseman or a celebration of Anthony Hopkins into this kind of PR disaster. I mean, the Oscars is notorious for doing stupid things like this, but
what
I
it
mean,
goes to show is they actually don't have a clue as to who's the winner, because there's no way
No.
they could have scheduled it like this if they'd have known.
No, it's a good point actually. I mean, I'm really happy that Anthony Hopkins won because I've seen The Father and I think it's arguably his best performance since when I saw it. I said it was his best performance since his 1990s heyday of like Shadowlands or Remains of the Day. I mean, it really gives him a proper role to chew on, but it's not a kind of scenery chewing grandstanding role. I mean, if there is grandstanding, it emerges organically out of this character that he's playing who is suffering with dementia and he's isolated in his flat. His daughter apparently wants to move to Paris with her partner, and then he starts imagining the daughter as somebody else or as a series of people, and her partner as well. And the film is directed by Florian Zeller. It's adapted by Florian Zeller from his own stage play. And what it does is it's devastating, but it's actually very scary. It really does put you in the mindset of what it would feel like to experience this condition. The fact that you see someone one way and then someone else comes at you with the same name and they're like and they claim to be your daughter or whatever. And I think the film does a really, really good job of being devastatingly moving, surprisingly suspenseful, but it's not exploitative. And I think that's the critical wedge. I mean, clearly, if it was exploitative, it would have collapsed in an absolute heap. But Hopkins' performance is just brilliant, and Olivia Colman is fantastic as well, as one would expect.
Olivia Colman is Olivia Colman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it is. So I'm really torn about it because it's a really close subject to home. So do you know what I mean? I'm not sure if I want to go through that, but just going to some of the other nominated actors. Let's just pay a tribute to Chadwick Boseman for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. He was nominated for it. It was his final performance, and he is just electric in the film. He's just so good, and he's playing a musician who is working for Ma Rainey, but not quite sort of in the band, as it were. And he is basically the one outlier within the band. And he's given some really, really great dialogue to chew on. That's based on a stage play. And there are moments in that film where you can kind of tell that it is based on a stage play, but what that gives is the opportunity for an actor to really get into the heart of a role. And some of the dialogue that he has to deliver is just, not only is the dialogue itself phenomenal and heartbreaking, including his backstory as when he was a youngster, but the way he delivers it is what brings you to that emotional place. And I think that having not seen The Father, I wouldn't necessarily have complained if Chadwick Boseman had won. But I mean, what a performance it was, both in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and when you're going back to Da 5 Bloods a little bit earlier on last year as well.
It's a phenomenal performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I think the film is flawed. I think the film is stagey and not always convincingly so. Certainly, if you put it next to One Night in Miami, which was also adapted from a stage production, but I thought One Night in Miami did a much more convincing job of taking the theatricality and making it feel cinematic. I think in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, that felt strained and contrived, but Chadwick Boseman, as one would expect, didn't put a foot wrong. It is a shame that, I mean, as always the case with the Oscars, the fact that we feel the need to boil his career down to the fact, did he get the Oscar? I mean, people don't stand on or fall on whether they get Oscars or not. Films don't stand or fall on that. But this is the classic kind of Oscar narrative, isn't it? We kind of we like to peg these awards to films or to people in order to apparently imbue them with more value. I mean, Chadwick Boseman's career, short-lived as it was extraordinary enough on its own terms. I'd point anyone towards his performance as James Brown in Get On Up, which was just remarkable just on its own. If he just acted in that, it would be amazing.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think we can. If you see Chadwick Boseman's name in a film, then it's definitely worth watching. I include the Marvel films in that as well. I think that they're brilliant, and he's perfectly cast. Some of the other films we mentioned sort of about the lack of validity to Oscars, and I think that's never more present than the fact that Mank now has more Academy Awards than Citizen Kane ever did.
remind me of which Oscars it got. Because I know Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross got Best Original Score for Soul,
Yeah.
along with John Batiste.
So Mank won cinematography,
Agree with that one.
production design, and that was it.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, if it was going to get anything, it was going to get those, wasn't it? Yeah. It's a very well designed film that left me cold. I have to be honest, and I'm a big fan of David Fincher. I mean, I don't want to rag on David Fincher, bearing in mind we already kicked his remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo last week.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I felt similar to when I watched Ed Wood, and I would point people back to that episode of Frame to Frame, because that was like way back, almost a year ago now. It was episode 13, and I just didn't really connect with it as much as some people did. I think I liked it a bit more than you. I liked Gary Oldman's performance, but hey ho. The one of the other big news stories that came out of it was was the speech that Daniel Kaluuya did for winning his Best Supporting Actor Oscar. So he beat out Sacha Baron Cohen in The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is a ridiculous performance and probably shouldn't have been nominated.
I totally agree with you there. Yeah, I can't believe he was nominated for that. But there we go.
Leslie Odom Jr. in One Night in Miami, who, I mean, big up Hamilton fans, massive fan, and he's great in that film. Paul Ratchie from Sound of Metal, who plays he's sort of the mentor character to our main character. He is an already deaf person that is sort of teaching Riz Ahmed's character the way through the illness, or not necessarily the illness, the condition that he's picking up with his deafness. And also Lakeith Stanfield, who is also in Judas and the Black Messiah. And nothing highlights, once again, the pointlessness of the Oscars more for the fact that they've got two actors in a supporting role from the same film when... I mean, arguably, I've not seen the film yet, but surely one of them's the lead actor, right?
It is a two-hander. I think the problem that they've had this year is that there haven't been enough films. There haven't been enough films to go around, I think, and I think they've really struggled to try and sort of spread people out. It's kind of like, oh, okay, we need actors, we need supporting actors, two people from the same film. Yeah, let's make up the numbers.
Well, that explains Sacha Baron Cohen's, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely exemplifies that brilliantly. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Lakeith Stanfield probably gets more screen time in Judas and the Black Messiah, which is terrific. That's one of the better films to have been nominated and recognised this year. Daniel Kaluuya is the de facto lead, and he plays Fred Hampton, the leader of the I think it's the Chicago branch of the Panthers in the film. I might have got the city wrong there, but they are both fantastic. He, the leader of the Black Panthers. Lakeith Stanfield is the guy who basically becomes the FBI snitch to infiltrate the Black Panthers and who undergoes real moral corruption. They're both fantastic. I didn't see Daniel Kaluuya's speech. I saw it described as a bit of a word salad.
I mean, he, for lack of a better word, he Olivia Colman'd it. He just got a bit excited and said that my mum and my dad had sex, and now I'm stood on this stage.
Oh, okay.
And his mother and sister were in the audience.
Truthful.
Well, he doubled down on it in the post afterwards, and he said, "Well, I mean, it's true. Everyone's parents have done that." So, he ran away with quite a few of the old think pieces in the last 24 hours as well. Just running down the list of best actresses, we've mentioned Frances McDormand in Nomadland, Viola Davis as the eponymous Ma Rainey, Again, she's brilliant. She is very clearly the leading actress in that film, but I think the film belongs to Chadwick Boseman. Andrea Day in the United States versus Billie Holiday. I haven't seen that. Have you?
No, I haven't, but I have interviewed Chris Bowers, the composer, and he's brilliant, but he wasn't nominated for the Oscars. So.
And where can people check out that interview?
I've just transcribed it as we're recording it, so it'll be on Film Score Monthly. So I just need to submit it. Actually, I'll refer to that interview in a recording we are going to do imminently. So because I've got more to say on that.
Good to know. Vanessa Kirby in Pieces of a Woman. So I've seen that. Have you?
No, I've not seen that.
It's a film that's not quite as good as its opening sort of 45 minutes or 24 minutes or something. Like the first half an hour or so is just phenomenal. It tells the story of Vanessa Kirby's character who's gone into labor. So she plays a lady called Martha, and she is with Shia LaBeouf's Sean, and not you, by the way. And she is having a home birth, and the way that they depict her going through labor is visceral. It's painful to watch, and given where the story goes subsequently, it's extremely painful to watch. And I think that the rest of the film doesn't quite add up to that, but Vanessa Kirby is phenomenal in that, and I can completely understand why she's been nominated. And Carey Mulligan for Promising Young Woman, which again we mentioned we haven't seen. But I just wanted to highlight those before we move on to the supporting actress. And Amanda Seyfried in Mank, I don't think she had enough to do, if I'm being completely honest. I think she was underused. Do you disagree with me?
It wasn't. It seems a bit weird to say. It wasn't really an actor's film. I mean, Gary Oldman is one of my favourite actors. True Romance was on the other night, and I think, blimey, if only he'd won his Oscar for that 5 minutes in True Romance, in which he's extraordinary as Drexel. But Mank was all style. It was all style, and I think it's strange because David Fincher usually elicits fine performances out of his actors, and the performances in Mank are fine. They just don't. I don't think they resonate on an emotional level, and that's the fault of the direction and the writing, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah. You mentioned Olivia Colman in The Father. Maria Bakalova was nominated for Borat's subsequent movie film. I think mostly to celebrate the fact that she had to go through that with Rudy Giuliani, right?
Well, she's brilliant in the film. She's really great. She's fantastic.
But I don't think the Academy would have looked at this film and nominated its supporting actress unless she'd have gone through what she had to go through.
Well, with Giuliani again, I think it's a case of they were really struggling to try and find again films to make up the numbers, and I think that's why you've got a film like that, which would normally be overlooked. Mind you, the first Borat was Oscar nominated for its screenplay, wasn't it? But it's a really great, fearless performance. Yeah, exactly. It's a really great, fearless performance. I would rather Sacha Baron Cohen had been nominated for this, to be honest, than Trial of the Chicago 7.
I was just about to say he's better in that than he is in Trial of Chicago 7. And the two other ones in the supporting actress category, which I've left alone so far, I'm going to wind you up and go now. Glenn Close in Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh my God, give me that Oscar right now. Put some grits on the breakfast plate and go and have barbecue because it's absolutely amazing. Like literally like that all the way through it. Like it's just crackers.
Didn't she win the Razzie as well?
I think, oh my God, I got a Razzie, go with my Oscar nomination. That's what we got down here in Alabama. It's like that. Just
my days.
I mean, why don't I have an Oscar nomination? I could do it. I could act in that film.
Yeah, but you're not Glenn Close, Sean.
Yeah, this is very true, actually. Yeah. I don't have this thing. Yeah.
And one film that I know you have seen is Yoo Jung-yeon in Minari. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sure I did not. But I haven't seen it. So what is the film like?
The film is terrific, and it's I think it's a bit of a shame because I think people were bigging this up as more of a clean sweep kind of movie, and it didn't triumph across the board. But it's really lovely about a Korean immigrant family in America in the 1980s who up sticks and moved to rural Arkansas. So the husband, played by Stephen Yun, is a kind of restless soul, a sort of wannabe entrepreneur. He wants to live off the land, and to the eternal frustration of his wife. He's got two young children, and they're kind of caught in the crossfire between, are they being raised as being Korean, are they raised as being American? Then the grandmother turns up, who's incredibly unorthodox and maverick and just eccentric, but she speaks the truth. She speaks the emotional truths that the father, played by Stephen Yuns, is seemingly kind of turning his back on. And it's a really lovely film. It's really well observed. Again, like Nomadland, there's no melodrama in it. I mean, that things happen. There is a big set piece towards the end, which I won't ruin, contrary to what I normally do.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's not a movie of hysteria. It's a movie of just very gentle observation, and the score by Emil Mosseri has got this lovely quality to it. It's not quite harmonious. It's not entirely kind of tranquil and pulled together. It sort of darts and it leaps in this incredibly like feather-light fashion, which is really interesting to listen to. Yeah, I think it's a cracking film. It's well worth checking out.
I really want to. Since watching The Walking Dead, I would watch anything that Stephen Yeun is in. So he's Glenn, by the way.
Yeah, well, on the subject of Stephen Yeun, if you like him in The Walking Dead, have you seen Burning, the Lee Chang-dong South Korean film?
I have not.
Stephen Yeun is brilliant in that. He's really unsettling, and it's got this weird mixture of ambiguous menace and kind of hail fellow, well met smiliness, and you genuinely cannot work out what register his character is coming from. Is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he good? Is he bad? And that's a really unsettling film. I'd say anyone who has seen Minari and wants to check out more of Stephen Yeun's performances, go and watch him in Burning, the Lee Chang-dong film, because it's really well worth checking out.
I will absolutely go and do that. Just skipping through to some of the other winners that we've got. Best animated feature went to Soul. The best documentary feature went to My Octopus Teacher. Best international feature, which I do want to have a little chat about, is Another Round. Have you seen that, the Thomas Vinterberg film?
Yeah, I have. Was Minari up for that category? I suppose Minari jumps between English and Korean, so I'm not sure if Minari. I mean, if Minari was nominated in that category, I'd rather Minari had got it.
It was not. The other nominees were Better Days from Hong Kong, Collective from Romania, The Man Who Sold His Skin from Tunisia, and Quo Vadis Ada from Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Okay. I've not seen any of those apart from Another Round. I did like Another Round, the Thomas Vinterberg film. The idea that a group of middle-aged men kind of experience an extended adolescence, arrested development crisis, and they decide to undertake this experiment whereby they start on a certain level of alcohol, and it leads to an increased uptake of alcohol, percentage of alcohol every single day that they do it, to the extent that they get, to see what the cumulative effect of drunkenness is. And yeah, it's a really interesting film. I've seen a few people describe it as toothless. I mean, certainly it's not as savage as some of Thomas Vinterberg's other films, but like the Hunt. I mean, The Hunt is just it's a devastating film, but I mean, Another Round confirms that Mads Mikkelsen is one of the best actors working in film today. I mean, one of the most affecting sequences in Another Round is right at the very beginning, before you even get to the drinking experiment that they start doing, where these group of friends who are all vaguely disconcerted and vaguely dissatisfied with their lives, none more so than Mads Mikkelsen's character. And you know what Mads Mikkelsen does, he plays everything quite sort of bottled up and quite tightly wound, and they go for a meal, and he just very quietly breaks down. His relationship with his wife isn't great, and his career as a teacher maybe isn't panning out as he wants, and he literally, this is right quite near the beginning of the film, and you think, God, blimey, that's a really convincing performance of a man who appears to have reached the end of his tether before we even get to the bit where he starts drinking. Well, so yeah, it's a really good film.
Yeah, So what's come out subsequently as part of Winterberg's speech was that he dedicated his Oscar win to his daughter, who unfortunately was killed in a car accident 4 days into shooting. And obviously, during his speech, when he was talking about this, he said 2 months before they shot the movie, and 2 months before she died, she was in Africa and had read his screenplay, and she wrote him a letter, sort of with glowing excitement about the upcoming film project. So he said that he was making the movie for her as a monument, and that it's a miracle that it happened. And the really, really sort of classy touch that he ended on was that maybe you're pulling some strings somewhere to aid us with this win. And it was such a heartfelt speech, and it was great to see him win and turn that horrifying time into something this positive. And I really do want to watch another round, not just for that, but also it sounds like a good film.
It is a genuinely good film. I didn't know that. I had absolutely no idea of the tragedy that lay behind the production. That's really devastating, and that is extraordinary that he managed to get the film done at all. I'm genuinely stunned by that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
sorry to have taken the wind out of your sails with it, but some of the other winners that we had were Judas and the Black Messiah with "Fight for You" won Best Original Song. We've mentioned that Atticus Ross, Trent Reznor, and John Batiste won Best Original Score for Soul. This is an area of your particular expertise, and we haven't yet mentioned Soul. What did you think about this win?
the score for Soul is better in its John Batiste sections. He does the improvisational jazz sections, and that they are more harmonically dynamic and appealing. Reznor and Ross get the abstract, electro-synthetic sections set in the more abstract realm. I have to be honest. I thought their work on Mank was better, although
I was going to say that myself. But I thought you might well turn around and say that was a stupid opinion. So I'm glad we agree.
No, I would never do that. No. Well, I wouldn't do it on this occasion. So,
I was going to say never.
Yeah. Let me rephrase that. But I know a lot of people have said that the score for Mank, because the score for Mank doesn't sound like anything they've ever done before. You think of Trent Reznor Ross, you think of very cold, buzzing scores like The Social Network or The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo that we mentioned earlier,
or Nine Inch Nails.
That's where Trent Reznor obviously comes from. Yeah, the score for Mank obviously distills the essence of Bernard Herrmann, and obviously who composed the score for Citizen Kane and other Golden Age masters like that. It doesn't sound like anything else they've done. And I've seen a lot of people being quite sniffy online about the fact that, well, clearly the reason why they were able to do that is because they had a superb team of orchestrators, ghostwriters to help them out. And I'm like, well, yeah, a lot of established Hollywood composers have to draw on orchestrators and ghostwriters to meet deadlines. So there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I think it's a bit of a snooty attitude, really. The score for Soul, yes, there have been much better Pixar soundtracks than that. Again, the jazz sections I think are brilliant. I
agree with you in that I think it's the jazz sections that have won this award, because you think back to some of the Giacchino scores. So you look at Up, you look at Inside Out. They were just, you can hum those tunes from the top of your head, right? And I can't do that with Soul, and I've seen Soul 2 or 3 times at this point.
I was just going to say the fact that this Pixar score has won and Thomas Newman didn't for Finding Nemo. The Finding Nemo score is absolutely masterful, and Thomas Newman has never won an Oscar, which is ridiculous. So, I mean, let me just put that out there now, okay? Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross have got an Oscar. Thomas Newman hasn't. Okay.
Jerry Goldsmith didn't, did he?
No, he got one Oscar. So they are now level pegging with Jerry Goldsmith. So,
who, Sean, by the way, for new listeners, Sean Believe is the absolute high watermark of film composers. And I mean, I'm sure we could sit and look all day at composers that have been snubbed. But
Yeah.
let's not go on to that because that's a whole other topic. We mentioned best cinematography for Mank, which it's a beautiful film, so that makes sense. Tenet, I mean, obviously that makes sense. Best film editing and best sound went to Sound of Metal, which that film really, really puts you in the shoes of what it feels like to be losing your hearing, and it's horrifying. It really puts you into Riz Ahmed's sort of into his head at certain points because you're hearing what he is hearing, and the muffled sounds. It's just frustrating. The sound design of it is absolutely phenomenal, and it just made me really annoyed that I wasn't watching it in a cinema with a great sound system. I was watching it on my TV at home. Do you know what I mean? It it was just frustrating in that sense that I just really really wanted to have experienced that with all the immersion that comes with being in a cinema. So it tells the story of a metal musician, a metal drummer who is who's told that he's going deaf, and yeah, I think that it kind of had to win sound design and sound editing because it's brilliant. It's really really good, and Ahmed went into he actually learned American Sign Language for the role. He learned how to play drums for the role. He, I think, has been very overlooked in this award season. And there's certain scenes within the film that were improvised, that weren't scripted, with him and some young deaf children, and you can tell the relationships that they built up throughout the production of the film because he was insistent upon communicating only in sign language at a certain point. And I just think that the film is really really good. It's available now on Amazon Prime for anybody to watch. So I just think that the the way that the film makes you feel, without using too wanky a word, the verisimilitude of the film just really sucks you into that world, and it's just really really good.
I mean, the irony being, you cited Tenet before that. Tenet was released in cinemas, and I did feel like I'd gone deaf, like watching that. But
But you still couldn't hear
somewhat
any
ironically,
dialogue.
we can hear any dialogue exactly. So I'm actually really glad that Sound of Metal got the same mixing Oscars, because I kind of thought what they're going to do is, because Tenet is so loud, let's just throw the sound Oscar at it, because I think that's how the Oscars look at sounds. There's some noises coming out the speakers. Let's give them an Oscar, which I think is what they often do. Fortunately, they didn't. It looks like they haven't done that in this instance. They've actually thought about it. They've actually thought about the quality of sound design quite carefully, and they obviously quite rightly thought, okay, Sound of Metal apparently makes a narratively interesting device out of that. Tenet is just a blur of noise. So,
And I mean, unless they just went, it's a film about him hearing, it's got sound in the title, yeah, let's just give it that. Hopefully that's not what they did. Hopefully that's not what they
I
did.
wouldn't put it past them, to be honest. I would not put it past them. Just,
So again, production design went to Mank. Best makeup and hairstyling went to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which I believe it was said in the run up to the awarding of the Oscar that if you get the makeup and hairstyling wrong, that's literally all anybody will talk about. So when you do it well is when nobody talks about it, which is unfortunate. It's the same with editing, but there we are.
yeah.
Best live action short went to Two Distant Strangers. Best animated short went to If Anything Happens, I Love You. Best documentary short went to Colette. So that's a sort of brief rundown of the quote unquote lesser awards, I guess, the ones that aren't given as much treatment as the big pictures. But I think that on the whole, I'm kind of pleased with how these Oscars have gone, because having not seen Nomadland, it just sounds like they've got a lot of things right. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's a good batch. It's a good batch. I mean, it's somewhat ironically, the Oscars have come up to snuff during the most arduous and difficult year probably in the history of the motion picture business. But I'm glad they didn't drop the ball, because I mean the Oscars have awarded some real non-entities in the past. You think of something like
Driving
Shakespeare
Miss
in Love, which
Daisy,
I
Green
Driving
Book.
Miss Daisy, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
We
something
could go
like
on.
Shakespeare in Love. I've used this phrase before. It's like the cinematic equivalent of blancmange. Like, there's no flavor, there's no texture, there's no shape. It's kind of there, and you don't quite know why it's there or what it's doing. And you're like, you're going to give this an award? Like, really? So
And the
it's
winner of the
just
best blancmange goes to.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And ironically, all the blancmange awards would be all the films would look exactly the same because that's what blancmange is. It's just like a blob of stuff. And that's exactly what you got with the Oscars throughout the 1990s. All these ridiculous Miramax Oscar baiting nonsense that used to hoover up all the Oscars, and it was just tedious and
Yes.
fatuous and just annoying.
So at least they seem to be moving in the right direction. Like we said, it's the 93rd Academy Awards, something ridiculous like that, and
Yeah.
This is now the second female director to win, which is absurd. So, but at least we can celebrate that Chloe Zhao did get the win, and I think that's a great point in which to plug the normal podcast, the weekly podcast of Frame to Frame, where I mentioned at the beginning, we do slam two films together with ridiculous themes. We go out of our way to find the most ridiculous themes that we can, such as cockroaches singing in films, creative swearing, films set on steamboats. We've had some
movies with numbers in the title.
Yeah, awkwardly placed in the titles.
Yeah.
Films about evil plants with the word "little" in the title. Magic car films, alternative history, all sorts.
South Korean films set on trains.
Yeah, that was one. Yeah, I mean, we're what we're coming up on 50 episodes. This or 49 episodes with the one that we're going to be recording and releasing tomorrow. So we do release the podcasts on Tuesdays. They're available from wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then hello. This is the first time we've done this by video link as well. So please do feel free to subscribe in wherever is in the show notes for this. So until you listen to us again, hopefully on our weekly podcast, I'm Andy Williams.
I'm Sean Wilson.
And we'll see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.